Welcome back, everybody. This is Brian Green. I am the host of the Pickle Pulse, and today we have a very special episode in that we are going to talk about this beaut right here, the Joola Magnus Gen 3. The hype has been real. Everybody was waiting on these paddles. They finally released them, and I ordered mine. Actually, had my buddy pick it up at the U.S. Open when he was down there. Shout out to you, Tyler Slagle. You're the man. So let's talk about this paddle. This is the Tyson McGuffin Magnus, and it is the most unique paddle that I think I've ever played with. There are many different things that we can talk about it, but first, let's talk about the shape. So Tyson, for years, played with the Selkirk Power Air. The shape of this paddle is identical to the Selkirk Power Air. The length of the handle, the length of the face of the actual blade, it is amazing how close they got it to this. And I will say that even though the face of the paddle is much longer, it doesn't feel heavy in the hands. So it didn't really slow me down too much at the kitchen line. The other nice thing is I feel like this is a really good looking paddle. This is, I love the pink. We know Tyson's a big fan of the pink, and I love the pink and gray on it. The interesting thing about this paddle is what's called the propulsion core. So as many of you know, and you've seen out there, Joola has developed a trampoline-like core that is lined on the inside here with a softer layer of foam, with a harder layer of foam, the traditional layer of foam on the outside. What that does is it allows the face to sink in and it trampolines the ball off, which is really interesting because I thought that's what we were trying to go away from, is the trampoline effect and the ball just rocketing off the face. But this thing is seriously powerful. It's the 16 millimeter. It also comes in a 14 millimeter. But the way that the propulsion core works is that when you hit the ball, the harder you swing, the more the ball is going to sink into the face, so the more it will rocket off of the face of the paddle. So when you're at the baseline and you're swinging to hit drives, it's really coming off. But when you're at the kitchen line and you're just punching or you're trying to hit dinks, it doesn't come off the face quite as quickly, which allows it to have just a skosh more control. So I will say that this paddle has been really, really fun to play with. But I'll also say that the learning curve of this paddle is going to be extreme because it feels different when you swing different. And a lot of times guys like myself, who I'm going out, I like to swing hard on pretty much everything. Obviously the volleys and the punches I'm not swinging too hard on, but everything else I want to be able to do a full swing on and or feel like I don't have to hold back. And the entire time I was playing with this paddle, I felt like I had to hold back. Whether I was hitting drives from the baseline or whether I was up at the kitchen line, I didn't feel comfortable really playing my traditional game. So to me, it got in my head a little bit. It made it really difficult to play. And I did have a lot of fun and I won some games, but for the most part, I would say that this isn't a paddle that I'm going to take to a tournament that I'm going to feel good about playing with other than just for shits and giggles. So Joola gave us another carbon fiber face. They call it a charged carbon surface, which is very similar to the Perseus and the Hyperion and the paddles that they've released before. Like I said before, this is the 16 millimeter version of Tyson's paddle, and it is USAP approved. The weight is 8.1 ounces on average. I will say that I weighed mine when it came in, and mine came in at 7.81, so a little bit lighter than the average out there. It is a traditional elongated length of 16.5 inches. The paddle width is 7.5 inches, and the grip length is 5 inches. So it has a much shorter handle than most paddles out there, and that I would say most of the paddles I've been playing with are 5¼ to 5½ inches. When I picked up the paddle, it didn't feel short, though. I'll say 5 inches is definitely plenty, and for the two-hander that I'm working on and trying, it didn't really hinder or hurt. I would say the biggest hinder or hurt to my game is I just never felt comfortable with this paddle. I feel like I would have to drill with it for a month or two before I could swing away and feel like, okay, this is my paddle and this is where I'm going to go. This paddle has had a ton of controversy because is this really what we want for pickleball? Is to get to where the paddles are so hot that the ball is coming off and it's really hard to keep up with. As I was playing with it, when I get a drive, I would say even some of the best players that I'm playing against are having a hard time catching up to that ball because it is moving so fast. And if I'm hitting it right at their body, even if it's going out, they're having to block it and or try to block it because it's getting on them very, very quickly. The downfall to, again, the propulsion core is that it's hitting the ball so hard, it's going to take a long time to get used to. I always like to talk about the person that I think would really benefit from this paddle. And so I don't know necessarily about this particular shape in that it is a little more unique and the face is so long on it. But I think the Gen 3 Joolas would be really good for some of the tennis players out there who have very traditional standard strokes. The guys who make the game look pretty, you know, with their upstrokes and their top spin and things like that. I think if they really dialed it in, this could be a serious weapon for them because the spin is there. I think John Q got the spin on these anywhere from 2,000 to 2,500, depending on the grit of the face. I will say that on the paddle I got, the grit on both sides of the face also was the same. So I know many people have been complaining out there about, oh, the grit is much grittier on one side and a little more smooth on the other. And I haven't had that experience. The other person out there that I think would really benefit from this paddle is the females out there who want just a skosh more power on their drives and up at the kitchen line. I think the people who are not so worried about hitting the ball out, but are hitting good drops and just want a little more punch for hand battles at the line and or want to be able to hit drives, Christy Barker, for example, I think this might be a really good paddle for you, Christy, in that you want a little bit more heat on your drives. And I think if you work with it, you can develop the touch, as Tyson's shown. He is playing with this. So the ladies out there that want a little more punch, a little more heat in their drive, I think this could be a really good paddle for. Most of the men, the 4.0s, the 4.5s, the 5.0s that I've been playing with, I think there needs to be a level of control with the paddle, and this one does not have it. As a matter of fact, it's very similar to the gearbox, which I had a hard time playing with. I played with a handful of times, couldn't keep it on the court. And I'll say I had a very similar experience with this Joola paddle. Finally, the price point that this paddle comes in is $279.95, so top of the market. And Joola is not offering any codes and any discounts on this first batch of paddles, as they have created the hype, and I think they're going to sell through very easily without having to discount it down. There are 8 different shapes, from the Scorpius to the Perseus to the Hyperion to the Magnus. So there is a lot to choose from out there. I would say that if there's an ability to go hit all of them before you make that sort of significant investment, I would do that. But also think about the paddle shapes that you've liked in the past. One of the shapes that I think is really strong is the Hyperion shape. It's what they call that hybrid shape. The other one that I've been hearing a ton about from the different reviewers is the Scorpius shape, and that's one that I want to get my hands on and review, and I think I'm going to do that here in the next week or so, because the Scorpius is a little more squared. It's not as elongated. It means that the trampoline effect of the propulsion core isn't quite as exaggerated, so it doesn't dip down and it doesn't trampoline off quite as hard. So I've heard a lot of good things. I saw my friend Justin Lewis playing with that paddle, and I'm looking forward to trying that out. So there's tons of options out there for Joola Gen 3s. I would just say be very wary because they are expensive paddles, and I think for the right person, it could be a weapon, but for most people out there, this is going to be a paddle that's going to be really tough to play with. And other than trying to body bag your friends and hit the ball hard, it's not going to be very effective. So that's my take on the Joola Gen 3s. I appreciate all of you watching. If you enjoyed this, just take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. We're a small channel and we're growing, and I'm looking forward to bringing you all kinds of awesome pods. The other thing is I just had the GM of the DC pickleball team on last week, and I released that video. So go back and check that out. There's some quality information. He has a ton of knowledge, and Josh is just an awesome dude. So appreciate you guys listening and watching. Have a great week.